In this video, we will be exploring ways in which we can bring data into Python from outside of the program. In particular, we're going to focus on how we can get data from the web to appear inside of a Python program and then use that as input rather than working with input that the user provides. So before we get started, let's talk a little bit about strings, because working with strings will be pretty important when we start working with data that's coming from an external source. So imagine that you have a string like this, and this is going to be pretty common when we actually get to working with real data. Let's say I have a string called student data, and inside of this string we have the following characters. So Tracy, NYU, and sophomore. So this is a single string. So there's only one string here, there's only one variable in memory, and it contains a series of characters. However, if we look inside of that string, we can see that there are components of that string that may be useful for us in an isolated form. For example, we may want to extract just the word Tracy, or just the string NYU, or just the string sophomore, and use that in our program, because each one of those things has a separate meaning apart from the meaning of the entire string. So in order to do this, what we can do is we could split apart this string. So when we split apart a string, what we're basically doing is we're using a set of digital scissors to go in and snip the string apart into constituent components. To do this, what we first need to do is to isolate the separator character, the character that is delimiting the string from within the string, so that we could snip it apart. So I'll give you an example of this. Let's go ahead and split apart the string based on the comma character. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say split data is equal to student data dot split. And then the split method takes one argument, and that is the character that you're going to be splitting the data on. So this is saying, look at the string. Every time you find a comma character, split apart that data, package it all up, and return it to us in the form of a list. And that's what split data is going to be. And if I just print out split data and run this program, what we should see here is a list that contains the constituent components. Tracy is at the first element, then NYU, and then sophomore. And now we can use those elements in their own isolated form. So I can print out split data at position 0, and that would give us the name of the student that exists in this string. So that's splitting data apart. Now, why did we go through all of that? Well, we went through all of that because as we start working with the web, what we're going to be doing is bringing in data from the outside world. And when we do that, the outside world is going to furnish that data to us as one giant string. And then once we have that one giant string, it's our job to cut it apart and parse it into something that makes sense to us so that we can use it inside of our program. So here's how we can start to get data from the outside world. So I'm going to go ahead and erase all this. In order to get information from the outside world, we have to use a module. And the module is going to be called the URL lib module, and it's built into Python, so we just have to import it. So we're going to import URL lib.request. So we're going to go ahead and import the module. And the next thing we have to do is define a website to pull data from. So what we're going to do here is just create a variable. I'm just going to call it URL. URL, by the way, stands for Universal Resource Locator, and that's the string that looks like this: http:// like www.google.com. It's a fully formed website address starting with the HTTP. So all we're doing is we're just defining the website that we want to pull data from. The next thing we're going to do is we have to go ahead and request connection to the website. So what we can do is we can say response is equal to URL lib.request.URL open. There's a function called URL open, and what's the URL we want to open? URL. Don't worry so much about the syntax here. You can very easily find this online when you need to actually initiate one of these requests. But what we're doing here is we're basically opening up a connection, and then, very important, now we have to read data in from the URL. So we have to actually, now that we have a connection open, we actually have to read all the data in. So I'm going to make a variable here. I'm going to call it all data, and all data is going to be equal to response.read, parenthesis, close parenthesis, .decode, parenthesis, UTF-8. I promise you I'll explain this in a second. So what is this saying? This is saying, all right, go to our request that we just made, read in all data, and then immediately decode that data in a format called UTF-8, which basically means make sure that the data coming down is in standard ASCII format. So it's in a standard character-based format that we can work with. And that's it. Let's go ahead and print out all data and see what happens. So if I run this program, I'm going to connect to Google. We're going to open up the request. We're going to read it, decode it, and bring it into our program as a big string called all data. And if I run this module, you can see here we got a whole bunch of stuff over here on the left. Look at all this data that came inside of here. This, by the way, is all HTML code. So this is the language in which the web is written. So this HTML code isn't going to make a ton of sense to us right here, but this is technically the Google homepage that's coming down in plain text form that we can then analyze from within Python. Now, what we're going to do with this is we're probably not going to be working with data sources that look like this. This format, straight up HTML format, this is not really going to be incredibly useful for us in Python. What will be useful are data file formats that are a bit more formatted so that we kind of can understand exactly what sort of information we're looking at. I'll give you an example. I have my web browser open here, and I have a website that I posted here at NYU. And on this website, I have a whole bunch of words. So the, be, to, of, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are the 100 most popular words in the English language. So let's go ahead and pull these into Python, and we can work with these. Now, if you notice here, the word the is first, and then be, then to, then of. These are listed in descending popularity. So the is the most popular word in the English language, followed by be, followed by to, followed by of. That'll become important in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this URL here. So I'm just going to edit, copy that. Then I'm going to go back to my program, and I'm going to change the website address and just paste in that website address instead of the Google address. And then if I go ahead and run this program, I'm just going to go up here and click run module. We're going to be able to see that, check it out. Here is the data that we just pulled in from the web, and we should see an identical copy to the data that exists up on our web page. So if I just hold the web page and the data here in Python right next to each other, we can see that we have an identical copy of what was available up there on the web here in Python. So this is great. So now that we're able to bring this content into Python and we're able to work with it, you could see that we probably want to extract each one of these individual words. And the problem right now is that all the data came through as one giant string. So we have to split this thing apart. So remember before we had that string that was separated by commas. In this case, we have a whole bunch of words, but they're separated by line breaks. So if you remember back to when we studied the escape characters, we know that the line break has a special escape character, it's /n. So what we can do is we can go ahead and split up the data on the /n character. So we're going to say words is equal to all data dot split. What is the delimiter? What is the thing between those those words that we care about? /n, like that. Great. Now if I print the words list, and we just save that and run it, what we should see is a list that contains each one of the words that we care about. So that's really cool. So now we have a list. Now we can work through them. Now let's try one more thing. Now that we have this giant list of words that are ordered in the order of popularity that they are in English, let's go ahead and write a little program. Go ahead and ask the user to enter in a word. So we're going to say W is equal to input of enter a word in English. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the word that the user entered and see if it is in the list of most popular words. So remember from lists last week, if we want to see if something is in a list, if an element exists in a list, we can say, does this exist in our list? We can say if the word that the user entered can be found in the words list, then we found it. So once we found it, what do we want to do? We probably want to get the position of it. And once we have the position, we can tell them how popular it actually is. So get the position of this word. So we're going to say position is equal to words.index of W. Go to the words list and find the index of whatever word the user just typed in, and then report to the user. So print your word is the position most popular word. Otherwise, if the word can't be found in the list, print sorry, that's not popular. There we go. Let's give it a try, see what happens. So we're going to run this program and enter a word in English. I'm going to say the word the. Your word is the 0 most popular word. Well, that really doesn't make sense. Technically, it's correct because the is the 0th element in the position. But for humans, we probably want to add 1 to that number. Your word is the position +1 most popular word, and that'll say that it's the first most popular word, etc. Now, we can start to make this program as complicated as we want. We could probably see here that we might want to turn the user's input to all lowercase so that we can make sure that the word capital THE is the same as the lowercase version of THE, and all sorts of other features we can put into this. But this is the basics of working with the web. And again, all you have to do is initiate a web request to a web-based data source. Once we've initiated that request, open up a response channel, read in the data as a single string, and then we're probably going to need to split the data so that we can work with it inside of our code.